As somebody that has made a lot of pre-release video about Al Haitham, I've tracked his potential performance throughout the multiple beta updates very carefully. My pre-release judgment about him was that he would have been a very solid carry thanks to his above average damage output for the Dendro element and his great team options, with spread compositions and Quickbloom compositions being his bread and butter. For the most part I was correct, as Al Haitham is indeed a strong carry, and in this video I will analyze just how strong he is. Let's get straight into it. It's honestly quite easy to highlight the positives of a Dendro character in Genshin Impact, for the simple reason that most Dendro-based teams are incredible, thanks to their reactions having a very high floor. However, since Al Haitham has great on-field Dendro application thanks to his Dendro infusion on attacks, is rather unique among all Dendro characters in Genshin, as only Nahida can compare to him in that regard. A common misconception during pre-release was that Al Haitham wouldn't be a good pull if you don't already have Nahida. While Nahida is a very useful all-in-one support for him, if you don't have her, that also means that you don't have access to the strongest Hyperbloom iterations, which take advantage of an on-field Dendro applicator to enable Bloom's generation properly. If you don't have Nahida, Al Haitham will be the only character in your box being able to do that, and that, by itself, already makes him super valuable. But now, one might say, what if I plan to pull Nahida in the future? Wouldn't she be better than Al Haitham for the role all around? The jury is still out to determine whether or not Nahida's Hyperbloom teams are actually stronger than Al Haitham's Quickbloom teams. So compositions where you replace one of the two Hydro units with Al Haitham, but in my experience and based on my trials, Al Haitham Quickbloom teams can usually have faster clear speed than traditional Hyperbloom, for the simple fact that this Quickbloom variant has more front-loaded damage compared to Hyperbloom, whose output is almost perfectly distributed throughout the whole rotation. While Al Haitham can be called a front-loaded character, since in common rotations his burst is nothing to write home about, the combination between that and the first few procs of his 3-stack mirror attacks can quickly take down a huge chunk of the opponent's health, while Hyperbloom has generally been slower in my experience. Another one of Quickbloom Al Haitham advantages is that his AoE potential is superior compared to Hyperbloom. While his attacks range isn't super large, in situations where opponents are near to each other, it's not rare for his mirrors to hit all of them. An important thing to point out about how the current strongest Quickbloom variants function is that Yelan and Xinqiu are both single-target Hydro applicators for the most part, which means that in AoE situations, they will only disrupt quicken uptime on the primary target. What this means is that in multi-target situations, the radius of spread procs Al Haitham can get off usually increases, which is something Hyperbloom teams can't benefit from nearly to the same extent. Going more in detail regarding the technicalities, Al Haitham is one of the most flexible characters Genshin has ever released in terms of how well you can use the intricacies of his kit to your advantage. If you're an Al Haitham main, I'm sure you already noticed or have been told that if you aim his elemental skill correctly, you can get a plunge off instantly and get 3 stacks right away. This right here makes his split rotation potential much more interesting. A split rotation is a type of rotation where you divide Al Haitham's damage window in 2 parts. This is useful for 2 main reasons. The first one is that, on some teams, in order to take advantage of sub DPS like Yae or Fischl better, you need that small break to reactivate their turrets and maximize their uptime. The second reason is that, by splitting the rotation, and as a result by stretching it longer, you will lower the whole team's energy requirements, as they will get more particles throughout a single rotation. Specifically, since Al Haitham was assumed to have some energy issues, it's quite great that he has such a possibility. In short, you can get consistent 3 mirror stacks uptime even by splitting the rotation, which makes what was assumed to be a potentially nice thing in pre-release even more valuable. Another cool thing about him is that, since after he uses his elemental burst, his mirror's recreation is delayed by a couple seconds from the time of cast. You can swap out right after you use his burst, use an ally's skill with fast cast time, and swap back right before the mirrors reappear. This can be taken advantage of in different ways, as you can use a Dendro character skill like Dendro main characters to battery Al Haitham during that small window, or to recast some sub-DPS skill like Oz to tighten the rotation time and increase the team DPS. Aside from all of this, he's a very smooth character in general. His elemental skill Teleport can be used to quickly close the distance between you and opponents, effectively bypassing melee characters' combat limitations. His stacks mechanics are quite easy to keep track of, as usually you're going to lose a stack every 2 procs, which means that you can easily use mirror procs as a counter to reapply a stack through a charge attack or your elemental skill. All around, while all of these things don't necessarily increase his team DPS by much compared to what was expected, they make him very consistent and flexible, which wasn't a given. His only con, if you want to call it a con, is significantly relying on Nahida if you want to achieve his team's peak damage output. While the gap between Nahida-less comps and Nahida comps isn't as big as it was expected in pre-release, it's still there, as Nahida is an incredible ally for him, as she's a great battery, a top tier holder of the Deepwood set thanks to her AoE skill, a decent damage dealer, and a strong elemental mastery buffer. Nobody can even compare to her as a support for Al Haitham. However, as I said earlier, if you don't have Nahida, that just means Al Haitham has a different type of value for your account, and regardless, it's not uncommon for carries to rely on a specific unit to achieve their peak results. This is obviously somewhat subjective as well, but as of right now, I consider Al Haitham to be one of the best on-field carries at free-to-play and off investment, comparable to Hu-Tao, Ayaka, and maybe even better, because of how he fits into top-tier compositions and makes them even better with his presence, while being able to adjust well to nearly every situation. He's basically a good pull for your account regardless of what your box situation is. I'm done for today. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe. See you next time!